Have you ever been looking at a chord chart or a lead sheet or a piece of music and you've seen chord symbols like this or like this, and you didn't really know what to do with them? Well, in this video, we're going to be breaking down 7th chords to their most simplest point so that you're going to understand not only how to understand them, but you're going to have a simple method of practicing them so you'll be able to, once and for all, conquer 7th chords and play the chords you've always wanted. And if this is your first time here, my name is Michael Clement, and I am a pianist and composer who helps pianists expand their musicianship through improvisation and jazz piano. So thank you so much for being here, and let's jump into the video. So tell me if you have experienced this before. You're having a conversation with a friend over text, and you're going back and forth, you're having a great time, and they start sending you some acronyms that you've never seen before, like TBH or SMH or different things that you don't really know what they mean, and so it breaks the flow. You have to go search what those words mean, and then you have to come back. And a lot of times that's how learning chord symbols or reading chord symbols can feel, specifically 7th chords, if you're not familiar with them before. And really this gets to the heart of the issue with chord symbols, is that chord symbols are, by their very nature, they are shorthand. They are short ways that musicians have come up with for describing chords, but oftentimes the chord symbol doesn't tell you actually how to create that chord. It just gives you a language so that musicians can talk to other musicians and be able to come up with these chords in real time. So the first thing to understand about 7th chords is that they are not just patterns of 4 notes that we have to memorize by brute force memory, but they are in fact made up of 2 different parts. So in any 7th chord, we have a triad on bottom, and then the second part of the 7th chord is the 7th. We have the 7th between the root and the 7th. So just for a quick refresher of a triad, tri means 3, so there are 3 notes. Triads are the foundation of most music, and for this video, we're mostly just going to be talking about major chords and minor chords. Major chords have a raised third, such in this case, we have C to E to G, which is a major triad, and then if we lower that E to an E flat, that will make it a minor triad. So those are the 2 triads that we'll be talking about in this video. And then the second part of the triad is a 7th. So when we're thinking about 7th chords, oftentimes we're looking at a chord that's like this, and we're seeing the note that's on top, and we think that we want to look at the distance between the top note of the triad and the 7th. And that actually is going to lead us a little bit astray. So we're actually going to be thinking about the 7th as being a distance between the root note and the 7th. So we have C to B. So for this video, we're going to be talking about major 7ths and minor 7ths. So how do we know if something is a major 7th or a minor 7th? So the first way, it takes a little bit longer, but it's going to be the most comprehensive. The first way is that if we play a major scale from the root note, it will land on that major 7th. So if that 7th exists in the major scale of the root, then it's a major 7th. But if we have, for example, right here, C to B flat, if I play a major scale, that B flat is not in the key of C. So I know that it's a minor 7th. So let's do that again. That might be just a hair confusing, but let's say I'm looking between E flat and D. How do I know if this is a major 7th or a minor 7th? Once again, I'm going to play an E flat major scale. And if I'm going from the root, I'm starting on the root of that chord. I do a major scale up, and then if it lands on that note, it's a major 7th. If it's a half step lower than that, it'll be a minor 7th. So that's the longer way. It's a little bit more comprehensive, but it will get you there every time. The other way is a little bit of a shortcut, and it might be a little bit more confusing, but it is a shortcut. So the other way is that if you look from the bottom note to the top note, if you take the bottom note and then you stick it right next to the top note, if it's a half step between those notes, that means that this interval was a major seventh. But in the case of C to B flat, if you put that bottom note onto the top and then there's a note between it, or if it's a whole step, that means that it's a minor seventh from the bottom to the top. So that was just our refresher about triads and seventh intervals, and these are really our building blocks that are going to help us understand seventh chords completely. So once we put our triads and our sevenths together, the chord symbols that you've been seeing on chord charts and on sheet music are going to finally start making sense. But before we jump into that, I just want to ask you if you can support the channel by smashing the like button and giving me a subscribe. That way you will know when I have future videos that come out and you can keep getting content like this. So when we put our triad and our seventh together, we actually get the long form name of the chord. So in this case, we have C major, and then if I put a major seventh on the top, the name of that chord is actually C major, major 7. And that may be a little bit confusing because we're so used to using these shorthand or shortcut ways of talking about chords. So this is C major, major 7. Now, what happens if I put a minor chord on bottom, and then I want to put a minor seventh on top? Well, that would be a C minor, minor 7. So we're literally just putting the two parts of those chords, we're sticking them together, and that creates the name of the chord. So C minor, minor 7, C major, major 7. Now, what if I start to mix and match them a little bit? So I have maybe a minor on the bottom and a major seventh on top. Well, that's actually exactly how we would do this. So there would be C minor, major 7. And that is actually a very common name for that chord, C minor, major 7. You would see that on a lead sheet, and you would see C minor, major 7. Right? But some of these, there's the long form name, and then later we're going to connect them to the short form names. So there are basically 4 seventh chords that we're going to be talking about in this video, which are C major, major sevenths, C major, minor sevenths, C minor, major sevenths, a little bit less common, but we can combine them, and that is the name of the chord. And then we have C minor, minor seventh. So our first step to understanding seventh chords is understanding these long form names and just getting used to playing a chord and then recognizing the seventh. So this is a major chord on bottom, it's an A flat major chord, and then I can put a major seventh on top. So the long form name would be A flat major, major seventh. And when I was learning seventh chords, these were actually the names that I first learned. And I think it really helped me to understand these long form names before I got into reading chord symbols. And so an exercise that I want you to try along with me, and we're going to start it in C, but I would recommend you do it in multiple keys. So we're going to play through the notes of a scale, but we're going to be playing all chords. So let's start off just in C major. And we're going to do C major on bottom, and then there's a major seventh on top from C to B. And if you need to pause the video, figure out the sevenths on your own, or figure out the triads on your own, go ahead and do that. But the next chord up would be D minor. And then if I put the C on top, is that a major seventh or a minor seventh? Well, because there's a whole step between the C and the D on the top, that's the quick way, that would be a minor seventh, or a minor, D minor, minor seventh. And then we have E minor with a minor seventh, then F major with a major seventh. Again, we have F to E. You can go through one of those tricks to find that that is a major seventh. And then we have G major, minor seventh, and then the last one we're going to do for this video is A minor, minor seventh. So once again, these are the names of the chords that I recommend you learn first. First, learn these long form names of the chords, and then after you've been doing that for a few days, then we're going to start to connect the long form names to the nicknames for these chords that you have probably heard a lot. You've probably seen them on lead sheets and so forth. So now I'm actually going to share a short excerpt from my ebook, Anyone Can Play Jazz Chords, which kind of explains, I won't read through it here, but it explains how we get from the long form names to the short form names. And so we're just going to start off with the major seventh chords. So a major seventh, or a major chord with a major seventh on top. This makes a lot of sense that this would become a major seventh. We're saying major twice in the chord. So most of the time when people are describing this chord, we just call it a major seventh. And when you are reading a lead sheet, you're going to see, or any type of chord symbol on any sheet music, you're going to see a lot of these different shorthand or shortcuts to these different chords. So if it's a major seventh, it's a major 7. You might see lowercase m7, maj 7, or even sometimes you'll see triangle 7 to save even more space, right? And then how would that look for an actual chord? So if it's F, A, C, E, or you have the triad on bottom, F major triad on bottom, and then the E on top, that would be F major 7, there's F uppercase M7, F maj 7, or F triangle 7. That all means the same thing. It's F major 7th, or most of the time people are saying F major 7. So the next one, if we go along to it, if we put a minor, if we put a minor triad and a minor 7th, or a minor 7th, this one makes a lot of sense too. We're saying two minors, right? And so we're just going to shorten it. We're just going to call it a minor 7th chord. So D, F, A, C would be a D minor 7. And a lot of times you'll also see it here with D lowercase m7, D min 7, or even D minus or dash 7, which means minor. I usually think about it as minus, which that helps me with minor. I don't really think of it as a dash, but technically it's a dash. And then the third one we're going to talk about today is this dominant 7th, or the major minor 7th. And this is a really important chord in a lot of genres, and it can be a little bit confusing because the chord symbol is very simple, but it is made up of a major chord on bottom and a minor 7th on top. So we usually refer to this as a 7th chord, and that's a little confusing because we didn't say what type of quality it was. We just said 7th chord, and that refers to a major minor 7th, right? We also sometimes call this a dominant 7th, or we just call it a 7, and we don't have time to get into why it's called a dominant 7th in this video. But the main point here is that when you see a chord symbol that's just the letter and then 7 next to it, it's not referring to the major 7 or the minor 7. It's referring to a major minor 7th. So triad on bottom and then minor 7th on top. So just to recap here, you've probably seen in a lot of places that there are lots of possibilities for 7th chords, but the main thing that's going to help you understand these chords better is understanding that there is a long form name that doesn't usually get talked about between musicians, and that just consists of the triad and the 7th, between the root and the 7th, and that's how I recommend learning these 7th chords. And then there is a short form name, which is the name that is oftentimes on the chord symbols, and it's on your lead sheets. But it's not the one that truly helps you understand these chords. So I would definitely recommend spending some time just maybe 5-10 minutes a day until this is really making sense. Really working on this so that you can understand 7th chords once and for all. And if you do want a resource for going through that process, I would definitely check out my free ebook and accompanying video course, Anyone Can Play Jazz Chords, which is just going to demystify jazz chords starting from sevenths, helping you with an easy way to play them. I have specific ways so that you can practice these and feel comfortable and gain that fluency so that when you do see it on a lead sheet, it's just going to be, second nature. You're going to be able to find those chords much more easily than you have before. So if this is making a lot of sense to you and you're like, yes, let's go on to the next step. Let's learn some songs now that you have learned this. I would definitely recommend going and checking out one of my latest tutorials where I walk you through The Girl from Ipanema, which is a great jazz standard, one that you can start off with. And I show you how to play it, how to play rhythms that go along with this song, and it'll help you with your next steps getting started with jazz piano. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.